The taste of baked cheese still clings to my tongue when my knees kiss the kitchen tiles. The floor is cool and a little sticky where cranberry glaze met gravity and lost. I try to stand, but the air turns thin and glassy, the kind you can see but cannot use. The room narrows to a tunnel with bright edges. The dog hair arrived first, a drifting ribbon of white that brushed my ankle when Celeste lifted Nimbus for a photograph. It looked harmless, a fallen cloud. Now it feels like an alarm inside my lungs. From the dining room I hear the shudder of a phone camera. Mother turns her voice into sugar. "Chin up, Nimbus. That is perfect." Father asks if the bay window would give better light. Celeste laughs in the careful way that never disturbs the surface of a scene. They are arranging a picture while I am losing air. I reach for my bag and miss. My fingers find only the smooth edge of a chair and the dull ache of wood against bone. My vision pricks with bright static. I breathe in and my throat argues. I breathe out and my chest burns like paper touched to a match. My tongue goes numb at the sides. I tell myself to find the injector. I tell myself to move. My body obeys in half measures. My wrist knocks the cabinet. The small metal tag of my medical bracelet clicks against the door. The letters are scuffed from years of desks and handles and emergency rooms. Peanut, penicillin, animal dander, risk of biphasic reaction. I read it as if the words can become air. They do not. They are only a record that says I have been here before. I say Maeve, or I try to. The sound is a thin whistle from a stuck flute. I look at the refrigerator because it is tall and close, and has been in my life since I was a teenager who learned to cook pasta and oversalted everything. There is a magnet near the top, an oval with chipped enamel that shows a beach, a small yellow bucket, a girl standing with her hair in the wind. The magnet says St. Ives, 2004. My eyes sting the way they do when I smell chlorine. I lift my hand and touch the little picture as if summer can loan me oxygen. The enamel is warm from the kitchen light. The warmth is not enough. The kitchen door opens. Maeve calls my name from the hall with the crisp voice she uses when the stakes are not friendly. Her boots scuff the mat. She appears at the threshold and sees the shape of me bent on the tiles. She crosses the room in 3 quick strides and drops to her knees at my side. "Where is it, Blair?" "The injector." "Where?" "Left drawer." The words arrive like stones that have to cross a river one at a time. She uses her hip to pull the drawer, shoves tea towels aside, finds the orange cap by touch more than sight. She takes my thigh in her hand, firm and exact, and the needle enters. The pain is sharp and bright and almost welcome, a star that I can follow. For one breath there is only heat. For the second there is a thread of air. For the third there is a room again. "Stay with me," Maeve says, and she is already on the phone, telling the dispatcher our address and the time of the injection, and the fact that I am conscious and in respiratory distress. She speaks in calm lines that stack like bricks. She looks at my face between sentences. She checks the watch on her wrist. She times my breaths without saying that she is timing my breaths. Footsteps gather at the door. Celeste appears with a perfect sweater draped over perfect shoulders. Mother stands behind her, cradling Nimbus as if he is an infant prince. The dog pants with a pleasant smile. Father hovers in the hallway with his hands in his pockets like a man who is prepared to say he was never here. Maeve opens the back door and the night comes in. The air outside smells like wet grass and streetlight. Mother flinches as if the night might stain the dog. "You are making it worse by panicking," she says. "Drink some water. Sit up straight. You are sensitive. Everyone knows you are sensitive." She smiles down at Nimbus to show him that everything is fine. Maeve turns her head and looks at them with a politeness that has an iron bar inside it. "We need space," she says. She says it once. They step back 3 paces. They do not leave. Celeste presses her lips together until they go pale. Father studies his shoes, as if they have changed shape. I try to speak and fail. I point at the small trash bin by the counter where we kept an extra inhaler once. It is not there now. My hand falls. The lights throb. The edges of the room ripple. I hear the siren before I see the blue wash across the hydrangeas outside. Someone down the block curses and then laughs. Life continues in its ordinary language while mine turns to fragments. The paramedics move in a practiced ballet that frees a path where there was none. They ask questions with the softness of people who have asked them many times. Exposure to animal dander within the hour. Epinephrine at 1903. Known history. Medical bracelet confirms. They lift me with a sheet and speak to Maeve as if she is already part of the team. She is. She says I have 2 injectors and that we used one. She says I live with her for now in a building with no pets and windows that seal. She says I am not dramatic, only detailed. The paramedic with kind eyes nods and smiles as if he recognizes a dialect he speaks himself. They ask for a contact person. Maeve says she is the one. The paramedic glances at my family as a formality. Father clears his throat and murmurs that they will follow if traffic allows. Mother strokes Nimbus and says quietly that he will be anxious if left alone. Celeste does not speak. She looks at me and then at the floor and then at me again as if indecision is a mirror. The stretcher moves. The hallway is narrower than I remember. On the wall there are pencil marks from when I measured my height with a ruler. 9 years. 10. Then nothing. We did not stop growing. We stopped recording. I look at the gap and feel a small grief that is not about inches at all. Inside the ambulance, the air is cleaner. The oxygen mask smells like new plastic and something like mint. I think of school projects and how fresh materials always made me want to do my best work. The paramedic asks about earlier admissions and childhood asthma and anything unusual. There was something when I was 9, I begin, and the rest slides away as the tires lift and the city turns. Maeve climbs into the jump seat and takes my hand. Her palm is warm and dry. She anchors me the way sailors drop weight to keep a boat from slapping too hard against the pier. The siren finds its high voice, and my ribs learn a new rhythm. I breathe with the rhythm. I do not win any prize for that. I do it because breath is the prize. Through the rear window, I see the house shrink and tilt. The porch light paints a circle on the steps where we posed for holiday photos. Mother bends to fix the leash. Father limits his face to neutral. Celeste holds the dog like a shield and whispers something that could be his name or mine. The magnet on the fridge is a world away. A small girl holds a bucket that was not yellow. Memory gets the paint wrong, and the wind right. I close my eyes and let the picture fade. The hospital takes me the way the sea takes a waiter who finally dives. The light is steady. The voices are a language I understand. They slide a warm blanket over me, tuck the edges without fuss, and tape a line to my hand with tape that does not bite. Someone says biphasic window, and someone else says observation, and the words feel like guardrails rather than threats. Maeve pulls a chair close and sits with her knees angled toward me, so that even in rest her body says, I am with you. Time becomes a lake without ripples. I drift on it and drift back. A monitor accepts my heart and answers in quiet beeps. I borrow the beeps and make them the sound of a metronome for a song that has only 2 notes. In and out. In and out. I learn the song again. It is simple, and it is difficult, and it is mine. I fall through a thin door into a memory where a kettle screams, and the window lets in wind. I am 9. I tell Mother that my chest hurts. She touches my hair and says to drink water, little bird. The water tastes like pennies, and the ache curls at my feet like an obedient pet. Later we go to dinner with cousins, and the table is loud, and the lemon tart is too sweet, and I make a joke about whistling when I breathe. No one hears it as a question. It becomes a party trick. When I return to the present, the mask is cool against my face and my cheeks are damp. I cannot tell if I cried or if the air made condensation. A nurse with cartoon pears on her sleeves adjusts the drip and asks if I want her to call anyone. Maeve says she already called my parents and they said they would come in the morning. The nurse nods with a face that says she has seen many versions of the same choice. She writes a note that is not for me, and then smooths the blanket with a palm that feels like reassurance. I ask for my phone. Maeve puts it in my hand and supports my wrist so I do not drop it. The screen has a crack that looks like a comet across a dark sky. I open a new note and title it, Letters I Owe Myself. I type with slow pride. If I wake tomorrow, I will write a letter that sets the orbit of my life in a new direction. The sentence is plain and steady. I do not care if it sounds grand. I care that it points forward. I lock the screen and the phone becomes a small mirror. My face looks like someone who just finished swimming in cold water, alive and shocked at being alive. The doctor with kind eyes arrives and introduces himself as Soren. He explains the plan with the care of a man who knows that plans are not only medicine, they are stories that tell the body what happens next. He says we will monitor through the night. He says the second wave is possible and not inevitable. He asks if I have questions. I ask if calm has a therapeutic effect. He says yes. Panic can sit in the waiting room. Maeve smiles with one side of her mouth. She takes off her boots and folds her feet beneath her chair like a cat. She tells me to sleep. I resist because the beeps are a good lullaby. Eventually, the lullaby does what lullabies do. The night thins. Machines sigh. Footsteps pass and recede like waves. A cart rattles past, and I imagine rain on a tin roof in a country where tin roofs are romantic. I wake to a clock that says 3:20. My throat is wider, as if someone unclenched a fist. The second wave does not break. I let hope stand up. It does so quietly, without a speech. A message arrives on my phone from Mother. We will talk. The words look like a door that might never open. Another message comes from Celeste. Are you safe? I answer, yes. I add that I want to tell her what really happened tonight when she is ready to hear it. The word really sits on the screen like a pebble that might start an avalanche, or only roll an inch and stop. The nurse dims the lights as if she is lowering a curtain. The oxygen flows. The beeps keep time for a heart that is stubborn and ordinary. I make a vow out loud because I want the room to be my witness. If I get to walk out of here, I will not return to the kitchen that steals my breath. I will not barter my lungs for anyone's comfort. I will write the letter. I will set the orbit. I will do it in the morning when the light is uncomplicated. Morning begins before the sun. A thin blue appears at the edges of the blinds. A new nurse brings tea in a paper cup that tastes like metal and mercy. Soren listens to my lungs and says the word discharge with the respect saints use for names. We will see at noon, he says. Your body will declare its intentions. I nod as if my body is a country that can file a document. Noon is a far shore. I do not stare at it. I practice my first sentence instead. I almost stopped breathing last night. I put a period there. I refuse to explain the sentence until someone asks a question that deserves the work. Maeve wakes and stretches and grins as if a map finally matched the ground. She orders toast that tastes like a smile and coffee that tastes like a scolding. We eat and nothing dramatic happens. Peace without theatrics feels like a miracle. By late morning, Soren signs a paper and hands it to a nurse who hands it to me. If I have a safe place, I can go home. Maeve raises both thumbs at the same time and declares that we have a safe place and a cat whose primary hobby is owning the sun. She shows the nurse a list on her phone. Windows that seal. New filters. No pets in the building. Emergency kit top right cupboard. 3 kinds of antihistamine. 2 injectors. A neighbor who knows my name and enjoys telling me to drink water. The nurse laughs the laugh that says she has seen the world and knows preparation when it shines. They remove the line from my hand. The tape leaves a clean pink outline. I trace it with a finger. It looks like a border and also like a ribbon. Both feel fitting. I sign the form. Maeve wheels her small suitcase even though we brought nothing but courage, which does not need wheels. We walk out into a day that is pale and faithful and waiting to be used. The city outside the hospital smells faintly of wet stone and traffic when Maeve and I step into the afternoon. The air doesn't bite. It feels neutral, undecided, a thing that could belong to anyone. I breathe it in through my nose. The way the therapist once told me slow, count 4, and let it out through parted lips. The first breath hurts. The second steadies. The third begins to feel like permission. Maeve raises her arm for a cab. Her voice carries cleanly across the street, quick and confident. She always sounds as if she has already negotiated with the world and won. I envy that certainty, but also know it was built from the same raw material as my fear, survival practice. When the cab pulls up, she opens the door with a flourish and announces, "We're going home." I don't correct her. For now, her apartment is the only definition of home that fits. The driver glances at the hospital bracelet still on my wrist. "Rough day?" he asks. "Just learning to breathe," Maeve answers for me. Her tone makes it sound like a course you could enroll in and eventually master. The car moves through narrow streets. I watch puddles shimmer and turn the sky into a mirror that no one asked for. We pass a a pharmacy, a secondhand bookstore with letters missing from its sign. Every window reflects a version of life that continues without my consent. Women carrying groceries, a boy dragging a cello case that bumps every few steps, a man adjusting his tie in the reflection of a bus window. I imagine each of them has a place to arrive at without hesitation. My own destination is borrowed, but it's a start. When the car stops, Maeve pays before I can protest. The building is a narrow wedge of brick with ivy growing like handwriting across its side. On the second floor, the hall smells of lemon polish and something faintly floral. Mrs. Duarte's door is open a crack. She peers out the moment she hears us. Her lipstick is a daring shade of cherry, the color of someone who refuses to fade. "Finally," she says. "The city was whispering that you'd scared death again." Maeve laughs. "He was disappointed. She left too quickly." Mrs. Duarte waves her hand as if brushing away the idea of death itself, then pushes a basket toward me. "Soup, bread, something sweet. Eat before you faint again. It ruins the flooring." She taps my arm lightly and retreats into her apartment, leaving a trail of perfume like a short, kind spell. Inside Maeve's flat, the light comes through big windows that face west. Milo, the cat, stretches across the rug as if he's been expecting me. The space is small but ordered. One couch, one desk, a bookshelf organized by color. There's a feeling here that everything has a reason to exist. I sit on the couch, peel the hospital bracelet from my wrist, and study the pink mark it leaves behind. It looks like a faint scar, a souvenir from a country I don't want to visit again. Maeve disappears into the kitchen. I hear the kettle click, the sound of cupboard doors opening. When she returns, she carries 2 mugs of tea, and the kind of authority that only sleepless nights grant. "Drink this," she says. "Doctor's orders." "You're not a doctor." "I am today." The tea is chamomile, warm enough to make my palms sting pleasantly. The steam fogs my glasses. It smells like something you give to children after bad dreams. We sit in silence for a minute, letting the city hum through the windows. Then she asks, softly, "What will you do about them?" I know who she means. The question lands between us like a small stone dropped into deep water. Ripples of thought spread out. The house, the table, the dog hair still floating in corners, the way Mother's eyes never met mine once that night. I want to say I don't know. I want to say it's too soon. Instead, I hear myself say, "I'm going to write." Maeve nods. "Good. Words are safer than silence. Silence molds." I open my laptop and stare at the blank screen. The cursor blinks patiently, as if it has all day. My fingers hover above the keys but don't move. "What if I write it wrong?" I ask. "Then you write it again." So I begin. "Dear Mother and Father." I almost stopped breathing last night. The sentence glows against the white background, too bright, almost accusatory. I look at it until the words start to lose their shape. Then I continue. It wasn't the first time my lungs forgot their job, but it was the first time I realized how quiet a family can be when someone is dying on the floor. I pause. My throat tightens, not from allergy this time, but from memory. Maeve says nothing, just leans back in her chair and scrolls through her phone like a guard giving space to a confession. I write for 20 minutes, stopping only when my hands tremble. The letter isn't long, not yet. It's a list of moments that don't know where to belong. When I finally stop, Maeve takes the laptop and reads silently. She scrolls back up, then down again. "It's not an accusation," she says. "It's a witness statement." That sounds clinical. It's cleaner that way. Truth without theater. Outside, a car alarm shrieks, once, twice, then gives up. I save the file under a name that feels like a password only I would know. Gravity. It's what the night lacked. It's what the letter gives me back. The hours stretch thin. The soup from Mrs. Duarte tastes like something grandmothers invent when there's not enough of anything else. Beans, herbs, faith. I eat slowly while Maeve works on her laptop beside me, both of us framed by the blue light of screens. The normalcy feels almost artificial, a stage set after the storm. I realize how rare it is to share a room where no one demands a version of me I cannot supply. When I wash the dishes, the warm water turns my hands red. The sound of plates clinking reminds me of childhood dinners when I would volunteer to clear the table just to escape conversation. Back then I thought it was shyness. Now, I know it was survival. Before bed, Maeve leaves a small white box on the table, 2 spare injectors, new prescription labels already filled out with my name. "Keep one near your bed, one in your bag," she says. "And maybe one metaphorical one for your sanity." I smile. "Those expire faster. Then we'll refill as needed." When she's asleep, I sit by the window. The city lights ripple on the river, each one a heartbeat of someone else's night. My reflection overlays the view. Pale face, tired eyes, faint mark on my wrist. I think of Celeste's message. "Are you safe?" I type back, "Yes, but not the same kind of safe as before." Then I delete it. I don't know if I want her to understand or to stay in the dark a little longer. I close my eyes and let memory play backward. The kitchen, the smell of garlic, the click of Mother's heels, Nimbus turning in circles under the table, Celeste laughing at something trivial. Then silence, except for the slow, ugly sound of me fighting for air. I see it again, the way light fell on the enamel magnet Street Ives, 2004. I had forgotten that trip for years. Now it hums in the back of my mind. A small door I'm not ready to open. In bed, I whisper the names of everyone I love, one by one, the way people once counted sheep. Maeve, Milo, Mrs. Duarte, even Celeste, though her name feels like a thorn and a petal in one. I skip Mother and Father tonight, not out of cruelty but because I don't know which version of them would answer if I called. Sleep takes its time. When it finally arrives, it comes gently, like a tide that doesn't want to startle the sand. I wake to sunlight that has already claimed the room. Milo is perched on the windowsill, tail flicking like a metronome. Maeve is gone, probably to work. On the table she's left a note. Doctor says no heroics. Rest. Hydrate. Pretend to watch something stupid. I smile despite myself. I make tea. Not chamomile this time, but something sharper, peppermint with a hint of honey. The taste clears the fog in my head. I open the laptop again and reread the letter. It feels different in daylight, less a wound, more a beginning. I add a paragraph about gratitude. Not because they earned it, but because I need the act of saying thank you to remind me I'm capable of kindness, even when hurt. When I finish, I print the letter. The sound of the printer fills the apartment like a slow heartbeat. I fold the paper into thirds, slide it into an envelope, and write their names in blue ink, Evelyn and Charles Harrington. The handwriting looks calm. I almost believe it. I leave the envelope on the counter for Maeve to deliver through the hospital's liaison office, neutral ground. I can already imagine the quiet it will cause when it lands. Silence can be a kind of thunder if delivered in the right packaging. I stand at the window again. Across the street, someone waters a row of plants on a balcony, the droplets catching sunlight like a brief applause. A bus sighs at the corner stop. Somewhere, a child laughs with the full confidence of someone who hasn't yet learned to measure love in conditions. I rest my forehead against the glass. The surface is cool. I whisper a line I once read in a book and never forgot. To breathe is to insist. I am still insisting. The light inside the ICU has its own logic. It doesn't obey sunrise or sunset. It hums in steady whiteness that never wavers. I wake into that light with a dry throat and the uneasy sense of being observed. The monitor beside me keeps score in green lines. Each blip feels like a tiny agreement between my heart and the machine. A nurse leans over me and checks the IV. Her badge says Mira. Her perfume is faintly citrus. "Welcome back, sweetheart," she says. "You did a full night's work breathing on your own." Her voice feels like a blanket tucked around sound. "Any family yet?" I manage to ask. She shakes her head. "We called them twice overnight. No answer the first time, and the second they said they'd be in the morning." Morning? I look at the wall clock. It's nearly 11. My body feels both weightless and too heavy. The air here smells of antiseptic and patience. I press my palm against the blanket and remind myself that I am here, that I didn't disappear when the lights faded. Mira adjusts my pillow. "Friend's been here, though." "Maeve. Fierce one, that girl." A corner of my mouth lifts. She usually wins arguments with gravity. Maeve arrives with a plastic cup of coffee, and her laptop balanced under one arm. Her hair is messy in a way that makes nurses smile. She sets the cup on my tray and studies my face like she's reading a vital sign. "How's the air?" "Expensive," I croak. "But the hospital's covering it." She exhales. Good. You scared the living daylights out of me. I sip water through a straw. The cold travels straight to my chest. The simple act of swallowing feels like proof of ownership. You stayed? I wasn't going to leave you to the world's worst family PR team. She gestures toward my phone on the bedside table. I unlock it. There are messages, of course. One from Celeste. Hope you're okay? A picture of Nimbus attached, tongue out, captioned, he misses you. I close the phone. No word from your parents? Maeve asks. They're probably finding the right filter for their guilt. She doesn't argue. That's why she's different. Most people rush to fill silence. Maeve treats it like a guest. She makes space for it, hands it a drink. Dr. Soren appears near noon. He has that tidy look of someone who arranges his thoughts before entering a room. Blair, he says, drawing a chair close. You stabilized well. No secondary drop in pressure. We'll move you out of ICU this evening if the next set of labs look good. Lucky me, I murmur. Luck and discipline, he corrects gently. You were prepared. Not everyone carries injectors or friends who know how to use them. He glances at Maeve. You saved her twice. Once with the needle, once by staying calm. Maeve shrugs. She's hard to replace. Soren turns back to me. Do you have any questions before I disappear into paperwork? Only one, I say. Why do people freeze when someone stops breathing? He folds his hands. Because panic is contagious. Training isn't. Most families believe love is enough to substitute for readiness. It isn't. The truth lands cleanly. I file it somewhere I can use later. When he leaves, I stare at the pale curtain dividing my bed from the next. On the other side, someone snores softly. The rhythm is almost soothing. I wonder if their family came, if they have flowers at their bedside, if someone is whispering apologies over the hiss of oxygen. Maeve taps her laptop. I emailed your HR about medical leave. Don't worry, I phrased it so they can't guilt you into answering emails. Thank you, I whisper. She smirks. Also ordered dinner from the cafeteria that doesn't taste like betrayal. We eat together when it arrives, lukewarm soup for me, coffee for her. Between spoons, my mind drifts. The word family feels like a foreign noun I once studied in school and never mastered. By early evening, they wheel me to a quieter recovery room. The walls are a softer color. The window opens an inch. Maeve helps unpack the bag she brought from her flat clean shirt. Charger, a notebook. She sets the notebook on my tray and says, You said you'd write. You might as well start while the ink's free. I flip to the first page. The lines are faint blue, wide enough to let breath fit between them. The pen feels heavier than it should. I write one sentence. Silence isn't love, even when it's polite. Then I stop. Maeve leaves to take a call. I watch her through the glass partition, pacing the hall. Her reflection in the glass overlaps with mine, two figures stitched by light. She looks steady. I look like a ghost caught mid-negotiation. When she returns, she's frowning. Your parents finally called the nurse's desk. They wanted to know if visiting hours apply to family. Meaning they were deciding if it's worth the drive. I laugh, though it comes out hollow. Maybe they'll send Nimbus with flowers. Don't joke about that, she says, but her mouth twitches anyway. Outside, the sky turns the color of pewter. I ask her to open the window the inch it allows. Cool air creeps in, tinged with rain and exhaust. I breathe until the plastic scent of the room fades. Do you ever feel like you've been explaining the same thing your whole life? I ask. Maeve tilts her head. What thing? That it's not drama, it's damage. And that damage doesn't disappear just because someone finds it inconvenient. She nods slowly. All the time. For a while we sit like that, two people with the same unsent letters folded somewhere under their ribs. When the nurse returns for vitals, she finds us quiet. Stable, she says after checking the monitor. Keep breathing like you mean it. Maeve grins. That's her specialty. But I know it isn't. Not yet. Breathing like I mean it will take practice. Later that night, after Maeve goes home to feed Milo, I scroll through old messages on my phone. Years of group chats, photos, casual jokes. One from last Christmas. Celeste in a red sweater. Nimbus wearing reindeer ears. Mother captioned it, Our Little Miracle. I wasn't in the frame. I had taken the picture. I remember thinking that was fine, that someone had to hold the camera. Now, lying here with a faint heartbeat echoing on a monitor, I realize how practiced I've become at vanishing. I open a new note. Title: Boundaries. I write a list, small, practical, not poetic. 1. No animals near me, ever. 2. No apologies without actions. 3. No more family photos where I'm the one holding the camera. 4. If love makes me smaller, it's not love. The list ends there, for now. It's enough to stake a claim. I fall asleep with the notebook open beside me. In the dream that follows, I am back at the house. The magnet is on the fridge, the same chipped enamel, but the picture has changed. The girl in it is older, standing on the shore alone, holding the bucket high as if it were a torch. The wind catches her hair. She looks alive. When I wake, the sun is pushing through the blinds, and the notebook has fallen to the floor. The page flutters in the fan's breeze, showing those 4 lines like commandments. I read them again and think, yes, this is the new scripture. Evening comes disguised as a change in the color of the floor. The corridor outside my room turns from pearl to pewter. The fan hums. The monitor keeps its quiet pulse. I open the window the 1 inch it allows and let in air that smells like rain on distant stones. Maeve arrives with a paper bag and a look that says she fought 3 small fires and won. She sets the bag on the table and pulls out a square of lemon cake that looks too bright for a hospital. We cut it with a plastic knife and pretend it is a good plate. The first bite is sharp and sweet. It tastes like the opposite of apology. The envelope is with the liaison, she says, licking a crumb from her finger. Neutral hands, neutral route. Good, I say. I do not want a family argument riding shotgun in your car. She laughs softly. I would put it in the trunk. Then her smile fades. They called again. Your parents. They asked if pets are allowed on the ward. I stare at her. For a second, the room tilts. They wanted to bring the dog. They said he cheers people up. I place the fork on the tray with care. People who are not me. Maeve tucks the cake away like she is saving a bright thing for later. The nurse handled it. She used the firm voice. The one that moves mountains and visiting relatives. I breathe. In. Out. The air tastes clean again. Thank her for me. I already did. Twice. We watch the sky turn the color of old coins. Somewhere above us, a helicopter breaks the quiet with steady blades. Life continues to arrive with sirens and leave with soft wheels and whispered instructions. I imagine the envelope moving through its own corridors, from desk to desk, like a small boat pushed along a current of procedure. My phone vibrates. Celeste. I do not open the message right away. The preview shows 3 words. Can we talk? The last time she used that punctuation, we were teenagers and she wanted me to take a test for her because she had stage fright. I press call before I can change my mind. She answers on the first ring. Blair. Are you awake? I am. A breath through the line. I hear a television somewhere in the background, the low drone of a nature documentary, water over rocks. I looked up biphasic anaphylaxis, she says. The word biphasic wobbles in her mouth like a borrowed cup. I did not know it could happen twice. Knowing does not change what happened, I say, and try to keep my voice level. No, I am sorry. The sentence is new on her tongue as if she had to find it in a dictionary. Maeve watches my face, not the phone. She keeps her attention on me like a steady hand on a bicycle seat. Celeste continues, softer. I keep seeing you on the floor. I keep seeing how I looked at my phone instead of you. I do not like that person. You can choose another one, I say. She is quiet. I hear her swallow. Can I come tonight? I look at the clock. Visiting hours are nearly over. Not tonight. Tomorrow morning, if you come alone. Without Nimbus, she says quickly, trying for a joke that never makes it to the runway. Without Nimbus, I confirm. And do not bring explanations as gifts. Bring ears. Okay. A pause. Are you safe? It is the same question as before, but it lands differently now. I picture her in the upstairs hallway at home, the light from the landing turning her hair gold, the dog asleep at her feet. I picture the magnet on the fridge, and the wrong-colored bucket and something behind that summer none of us will touch. I tell her yes. I tell her I want to tell her what actually happened and what has been happening for a long time. She says okay again, smaller and real. When I hang up, Maeve raises an eyebrow. Alone tomorrow? Yes? She leans back, satisfied. Good. Ears, not gifts. Mira the nurse comes in for the evening checks. She has a way of wrapping the cuff around my arm that feels like a hug disguised as a blood pressure reading. Her citrus perfume is softer at night. When she notes the numbers, she gives me the kind of nod that makes you think you have passed a test you did not study for. Thank you for refusing a dog visit, I say. She laughs. I prefer breathing patients. It makes charting easier. She hesitates, then adds, Your mother stayed on the phone a long time before she hung up earlier. She kept asking about parking and hours, and whether the lights in here are very bright. Does she not like hospitals? I ask, trying to sound like a person who is merely curious. Mira shrugs. Some people avoid places that make them feel small. Some avoid places that remind them of something they cannot fix. She adjusts the line and smooths the blanket. Neither avoidance helps the person in the bed. After she leaves, I look at the notebook on my tray. I add a 5th line to my list. 5. I will not apologize for needing what keeps me alive. The sentence steadies me. I do not know if it will steady anyone else. I am learning that this cannot be my concern. Maeve stretches and stands. I need to feed the cat and pretend to sleep. Do you want me back at dawn or at a civilized hour? Dawn, I say, and we both know dawn means whatever time I wake up afraid. She squeezes my shoulder and goes. The door closes softly. The window lets in a thread of air, and I follow it with my breath until it becomes wider. Night thins to a veil. I drift and wake and drift. In one waking, I remember the pencil marks in the hallway at home. 9 years. 10. Then nothing. In another, I remember the kettle in that St. Ives kitchen screaming while no one turned it off. I begin to suspect that the screaming kettle belongs to more than one memory. Maybe it is a symbol my mind borrows when it wants me to pay attention. Near midnight, the phone buzzes again. A message from Mother. We will come in the morning. The words arrive like luggage with no tag. They could hold anything. I type back a single line. Visiting hours start at 9. I add, please come without the dog. I delete the please. I send the sentence anyway. I place the phone face down and feel my ribs loosen one tooth. I sleep in bursts. In one dream, I am a lifeguard watching an empty pool. In another, I am the pool, still and bright, waiting for a body to claim me. When morning begins, it does not burst. It gathers. The room takes on a blue that is gentler than night and kinder than noon. Maeve slips in carrying contraband coffee and a folded newspaper. She whispers that the cat has accepted my continued existence as an adequate outcome. She reads me the headlines in a fake serious voice. None of them matter. All of them add up to proof that the world did not end. She sets the coffee by my hand like a medal. At 8:50, Mira checks the monitor and the lines on her face soften. You look human, she says. Keep going. At 9, the door opens a few inches. Celeste stands there with her hair in a plain tie and no makeup. She looks younger than yesterday and also older than last Christmas. Her hands are empty. No dog, no gifts. Only a small fear that I can see and recognize. Hi, she says. Hi, I answer. Maeve glances at me. I nod. She gives Celeste a brief look that is not a glare and not a smile. It is a test she expects Celeste to pass. Then she moves to the window and pretends to answer emails. Celeste comes to the bed but stops at a respectful distance. She looks at the IV, at the monitor, at the cup on the tray, anywhere but my eyes. Then she finds them and holds them as if they are a ledge. I did not understand, she says. I know, I answer. I want to, she says. Then listen, I say, and I begin. I tell her about how the air changed in the kitchen, and how the room shifted toward bright edges, and how the injector felt, and how the ambulance ceiling looked like a road, and how the word sensitive is not a diagnosis. I tell her about the 9-year-old who drank water because she was told to, and learned not to ask twice. I keep it simple. I do not add thunder. The facts are loud enough. Celeste holds very still, like a student in a class where the lesson matters. Twice she tries to interrupt to defend someone who is not in the room. Twice she stops herself. When I finish, The quiet is clean. Thank you, she says. For saying it that way. Her voice does not crack. It does not need to. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out a small envelope. My name is on it in our mother's careful script. She asked me to give you this if you would take it. I accept the envelope and set it on the tray. I do not open it. I will open it when I choose. Choice is a muscle. I am teaching it to lift. We do not hug. We do not perform reunion. Celeste sits in the chair by the window and tells me about a class she is taking, and about a plant she keeps forgetting to water, and about how the city looks different at 7 in the morning than it does at noon. Normal talk. It turns out we speak that language too. When she leaves, she promises to come back tomorrow at the same time. She does not promise more. I find that I do not want more yet. I want this exact size of promise, the kind that survives air. Maeve closes the door and exhales. That was not a disaster, she says, sounding surprised. It was not, I agree. She taps the envelope with one finger. Later, she says. Later, I echo. Soren appears before noon with the same measured calm. He listens to my lungs and smiles without showing teeth. I like what I hear, he says. If you like it too, we can plan your exit this afternoon. I nod. I do like it. He tells me about prescriptions and follow-up, and the way a body can remember a storm even after the sky clears. He tells me that rest is not weakness, and that preparedness is not paranoia. He does not say good luck. He says, see you on the other side of this wing. When he goes, I look at the envelope again. I slide it into the notebook between the page that says boundaries and the blank one that follows. For now, it will live there, a small sealed tide. I close my eyes and let the room settle around me. The window offers a thread of air. I take it and make it wider. The monitor counts. The clock behaves. I practice my new scripture under my breath. No animals. No apologies without actions. No vanishing from the frame. Love that does not make me smaller. No apology for needing what keeps me alive. It feels like a list and also like a door. I picture myself walking through it, steady, ordinary, breathing on purpose. The room that waits beyond the hospital's front doors smells like rain and disinfectant. Maeve holds the discharge papers as if they're a passport. I walk slow, still cautious of the floor, as if it might tilt. The automatic doors breathe open, and the outside world exhales into me. The air is not entirely kind. It stings my throat the way truth does. But it is mine. Maeve flags a cab. The driver doesn't ask questions this time. I sit in the back seat and rest my head against the cool glass. The city is still gray, still too fast, but I'm different. Every building looks like it's trying to remind me that motion is normal, that standing still was never meant to be permanent. When we reach the apartment, Mrs. Duarte is already at her door, arms crossed like a border guard who loves her job. You look better than yesterday's rumor, she says. Bread again, and I put less salt this time. Perfect, I reply. My doctor recommends gossip with carbohydrates. Maeve laughs. She's cleared for carbohydrates but not gossip yet. I promise to rest, and Mrs. Duarte narrows her eyes but lets me pass. Milo greets me with his usual indifference, which is comfort dressed as arrogance. Inside, everything smells faintly of basil and old sunlight. Maeve places my meds on the counter, labels out. You're officially under domestic surveillance, she says. I smile. I'll file for parole in a week. She leaves for work after making me swear to text her every 2 hours. The door clicks shut, and the silence folds around me like a clean sheet. I sit at the table where I wrote the letter. The laptop hums awake, loyal and unbothered. The screen still shows the folder. Letters I owe myself. The first file Gravity sits inside, unopened since I sent the printed copy. A new message pings. Celeste again. Mom and Dad read it. They cried. They didn't know what to say. I don't answer. I don't want an immediate dialogue. I want space to understand the silence that follows guilt. Instead, I open a new document and type a title, The Law of Air. It starts as a list, but the list becomes paragraphs before I notice. I write about how breath is democratic free but not guaranteed. I write that no one should need permission to inhale. I write that sometimes forgiveness looks like distance measured in oxygen rather than miles. By the time Maeve returns that night, the page is full. She reads over my shoulder, nodding slowly. It's not a letter this time, she says. No, I answer. It's a declaration. She leaves it at that. 2 days pass before the next message from Celeste. Can I come again? Just me. No one else knows I'm asking. I agree. She arrives mid-afternoon, hair tucked under a rain-soaked hood. She looks smaller without the gloss of home. In her hands is a folder, thick and worn. What's that? I ask. Something I found in the attic, she says. Mom said to throw it away years ago, but I didn't. I thought you should have it. She places it on the table and steps back as if it might explode. I open the folder. Inside are old-school records, report cards, certificates, and a single medical file stamped St. Ives 2004. My stomach tightens. The paper smells like dust and sun. I flip through pages until I find a note written in a looping hand I remember but cannot place. Patient shows psychosomatic responses, likely attention-seeking. The ink is faded, but the words burn bright. Celeste's voice is quiet. Dr. Hanley wrote that after you had that attack on the beach. Mom's cousin, remember? She said you just wanted everyone to look at you. I close the file. That label followed me for years. Every symptom had to pass through it. I know, she whispers. I saw Mom reading it last night. She cried again. She said she thought if she ignored the panic, it would disappear like that diagnosis said. So, she believed I was pretending. She believed you were strong enough not to die. It's a line meant to comfort, but it cuts sideways. Strength has never been my consent to suffer. Celeste twists her hands. She asked me to tell you she's sorry. She wanted to come, but she said hospitals make her feel like the walls remember her. I picture Mira's comment, the fear of places that remind people of what they can't fix. There's a reason for that, isn't there? Celeste nods. After the beach trip, she had a panic attack when she saw the ambulance. She never told anyone. Dad called it nerves. She started avoiding hospitals after that. I sit back. The room tilts slightly. A memory ripples forward. My mother's face pale at the sight of sirens. The way she stayed behind when I was taken to the clinic. The way she smiled too wide when I came back, holding lemonade in denial. She wasn't protecting you, Celeste says softly. She was protecting herself from remembering. The words rearrange something inside me. They don't erase anger, but they shift its center. It's not absolution, it's context. Celeste reaches for the folder. Do you want me to throw it out? I shake my head. No, it's proof. Not against her, against the idea that I imagined it. She nods, relief and sadness tangled together. Then she surprises me by taking a deep breath and saying, I found a new home for Nimbus. I blink. You what? An older couple from Devon. They have a big garden and no allergies. They send pictures. He looks free. The image hits me harder than I expect. Nimbus running through wet grass, tail like a flag. Freedom looks good on both of us. Celeste smiles carefully. Mom doesn't know yet. She'll be angry, but I think she'll understand later. Thank you, I say, and mean it. For the first time, the air between us feels breathable. We talk for another hour, small things, manageable things. When she leaves, she hugs me in the doorway. A quick, clumsy gesture that doesn't demand forgiveness. It asks only for recognition. After she's gone, Maeve finds me at the table with the folder open and the magnet from the fridge lying beside it. I took it from the house when I moved out, though I don't remember doing so. The enamel beach glints in the lamplight. What's that? Maeve asks. History, I say. And evidence that memory has terrible taste in color. She laughs, then grows quiet. Are you okay? I think so, I tell her. For the first time, the story doesn't end at the kitchen floor. She sits opposite me. We don't talk for a while. Outside, rain slides down the glass in thin, perfect lines, erasing nothing but making everything shimmer. The rain lingers all night, light and rhythmic like a hand drumming softly against glass. I wake several times to its sound, unsure if it's comfort or warning. When dawn finally peels itself across the horizon, the air smells rinsed and new. Maeve leaves early for work, after making me promise again to eat and rest. I promise. I break promises like that sometimes, but not today. I sit with the folder and the magnet side by side on the table. The medical note glares up at me, psychosomatic response. The words have teeth even after 20 years. I trace the ink with a fingertip. The hand that wrote them belonged to a man who knew my mother's maiden name, who attended her wedding, who held me when I was a baby. That familiarity was what made his word gospel. A note that could fit on one line had built a theology that ruled my whole life. I pour tea, not to drink, but because it fills the room with something warm. The kettle's whistle pierces the air, sharp and clean. It reminds me of that day on the beach, the heat, the salt wind, the sudden taste of metal in my mouth. I was 9, I said. It hurts to breathe. The adults said, "Don't be dramatic, darling." I believed them. The tea goes cold before I drink it. By afternoon, a knock interrupts the quiet. It's light, cautious. Through the peephole, my father, raincoat buttoned to the throat, holding a paper bag like a peace offering. I open the door. He hesitates before stepping in. "I wasn't sure if you'd—" "I said you could visit," I remind him. He nods, glances around the room. "You've made it nice. Feels safe." It is. He sets the paper bag on the counter. Inside, scones, still warm. My mother's handwriting on the bakery sticker. I can tell she didn't come because she's terrified she'll say the wrong thing or worse, the right thing. He takes a seat. His hands are the same hands that built my first desk, the same ones that tightened bolts under a bicycle seat, the same ones that gripped steering wheels through countless silences. "She wanted to come," he says. "She got to the door, but she couldn't." He nods. She froze. For a long while, we sit with that word. Froze. It fits our family perfectly. Frozen dinners, frozen smiles, frozen moments where feeling too much looked like a crime. He clears his throat. "Celeste told me about the file. And about the dog. She did what she needed to," I say. "I know." He exhales. "We didn't understand, Blair. You said you couldn't breathe, and we thought you meant fear, not oxygen. We were raised to treat panic as bad manners." His honesty is unpracticed but real. I watch his shoulders tighten, as if the truth has physical weight. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small envelope, different from the one Celeste gave me. "Your mother wrote this last night," he says. "She asked me to give it to you only if you looked steady." "Do I?" "More than she does." He leaves the envelope on the table between us and takes a slow sip of tea I didn't offer. "We want to do better," he says. "If you'll let us." I don't promise anything. I only say, doing better doesn't erase before. "I know," he answers quietly. "But maybe it can make the next part less heavy." When he leaves, he pauses at the door. "For what it's worth," he adds, "I changed the emergency contact at home to your name again, just in case." I almost tell him that I already changed mine to Maeve weeks ago, but I let the gesture stand. After he's gone, I stare at the new envelope. It's heavier than the first. I know better than to open it right away. Letters from my mother are emotional minefields, soft at first glance, explosive underneath. Still, I trace the handwriting. She still writes like a schoolteacher, every curve neat, every line polite. I tuck the envelope under the magnet on the fridge, the one from Street Ives, where the first misunderstanding began. It feels symbolic, almost theatrical, but it helps. The past can hold the apology until I'm ready to read it. That night, Maeve finds me sitting on the floor, folder open, tea cold again. She doesn't speak right away. She just sits beside me, knees touching. "I used to think," I say quietly, "that if I forgave them, it meant I was excusing what happened. But maybe forgiveness isn't surrender. Maybe it's just a form of truth-telling." Maeve nods. "You're not letting them off the hook. You're putting down the rope." I smile faintly. "You should copyright that." She shrugs. "Already did. Under Emotional Support Services, LLC. We laugh, and it breaks something open inside me. The sound is unfamiliar, too bright, but it feels like breath. Before bed, I take one last look at the folder on the table, at the magnet above the unopened envelope. I think of the 9-year-old on the beach. Water around her ankles, sand cold beneath her toes, waiting for permission to say she's in pain. I whisper to her, "You can breathe now." Morning comes with sunlight sharp enough to reveal dust motes dancing in the air. They look like tiny pieces of forgiveness suspended mid-flight. I take down the envelope, open it carefully. The first line reads, I believed you were stronger than fear, and I confused that with being invincible. I'm sorry for every time I mistook silence for peace. Her words are plain, unadorned. I read them twice, then fold the letter and place it in the folder beside the old diagnosis. One lie, one truth filed together. I pour new tea, this time drinking it while it's still hot. The steam rises like a small benediction. When Maeve comes in, I tell her, I think I'm ready to go back to work next week. She raises an eyebrow. Are you sure? Yes. Breathing isn't just about survival anymore. It's about rejoining the noise. She smiles, slow and proud. Then we'll make sure the noise knows it has competition. Outside, the rain has finally stopped. The streets shine like mirrors, catching every bit of light they can. I stand at the window, hand resting on the glass, and breathe until the reflection steadies. For the first time, I don't feel like I'm watching my life from behind glass. I'm inside it. The first ordinary morning feels like a test I haven't studied for. No alarms, no beeping monitors, no nurses sliding curtains aside. Just light crawling across the wall and the hum of a refrigerator that sounds too calm for its own good. I sit at the table with a bowl of cereal that tastes like nothing. Maybe that's what peace tastes like, unseasoned. Maeve left early for a meeting but texted a photo of Milo sprawled across her notes, captioned, "Productivity coach, hard at work." I open my laptop, not to write but to check email. There's one from HR confirming my return next week. They've arranged a gradual transition, half-days, light workload. The words are polite, the tone padded. I appreciate it, though part of me hates being fragile on paper. At 10, I log into my first session with Dr. Aria Lynn. The video window opens to a woman with silver-streaked hair, round glasses, and the kind of voice that could teach a plant to bloom. "Blair, welcome. How's your breathing today?" I laugh softly. "Functional. That's a start. Tell me what brought you here, beyond the obvious medical trigger." I hesitate, unsure where to begin. Then I realize there's no good starting line for a story that's always mid-sentence. "I almost died," I say finally. And what scared me most wasn't dying, it was realizing who didn't notice. She nods once. "And now?" "Now I'm trying to decide if distance counts as healing or avoidance." "That's something we can explore," she says. "Avoidance sometimes wears a healing mask, but healing learns to take the mask off." Her phrasing disarms me. I write it down on a sticky note. We talk for almost an hour about hospitals, about the letter, about what control looks like when you mistake it for safety. When the session ends, she assigns homework. Write down the moments when you choose care instead of control. I close the laptop and look around. The apartment is quiet. I decide to start small. Care. Opening the window for air. Control. Checking the locks twice after. Care. Making tea because it warms me. Control. Timing exactly how long the kettle boils. I realize both coexist. Maybe the goal isn't to kill one but to let them share the room without fighting. By noon, the sun floods the kitchen, slicing across the table where the folder used to lie. I moved it into a drawer. Not gone, just no longer on display. That feels like care. Mrs. Duarte knocks around one with a bowl of soup. "For the convalescent," she says. "And for the writer who looks too serious." I smile. "How did you know I'm writing?" "Writers have the same face as liars," she says. Eyes far away, mouth pretending to be here. She's not wrong. After lunch, I sit by the window and start a new document titled Recovery Log. I write about the first breath of the morning, about the cereal that tasted like nothing, about therapy homework that feels like trying to balance on one foot in a windstorm. Each sentence makes the day more real. By late afternoon, Celeste texts again. "Mom wants to send you a picture." I reply. She can send it. A few seconds later, an image appears. The garden at home, trimmed and bright, Nimbus's old toys gathered in a box. My mother's message follows. "We're learning what leaving space looks like." I stare at the photo for a long time. The garden looks smaller than I remember, as if distance shrunk it. Still, I recognize the gesture. I type back, "Space can be love too." Then I turn off my phone. Evening settles gently. Maeve returns, hair windblown, carrying takeout boxes that smell like garlic and rain. We eat on the couch, watching some mindless show where people renovate impossible houses. Every time someone says open concept, she groans. Every time someone says natural light, I laugh. It's almost midnight when she asks, "Do you ever think you'll move back? To the house?" No, to them. Emotionally. I think about it. Maybe, but not as the same person. You can't move back into a smaller version of yourself. She nods. That sounds like something Aria Lynn would say. She probably will, I reply, smiling. When I finally go to bed, I keep the window slightly open. The air moves through the room softly, steady, as if testing my lungs. I breathe with it slow, deliberate, awake. The night doesn't feel like a threat anymore. It feels like a pause between two honest breaths. The next morning begins the way all cautious mornings do, with tea, slow movement, and deliberate stillness before the day decides what it wants from me. I check my pulse without meaning to. Old habits survive longer than fear. At 9, I have another session with Dr. Aria Lynn. She appears on the screen wearing a red sweater, hair up, expression both firm and kind. "You look steadier," she says. "I'm practicing being a person again," I answer. She smiles. "That's not a small task." We talk about the letter from my mother and the visit from my father. I describe how the words felt like sunlight filtered through blinds, warm but still striped by shadow. Aria listens quietly, jotting notes I can't see. When she finally speaks, it's slow, deliberate. "You're trying to forgive her without re-entering the system that hurt you. That's advanced work. I don't want to erase the past. I just don't want it to be the only language we speak." "Then learn a new one," she says. "Start small. A text. A sentence that isn't about illness or guilt. Ask something neutral, what she's cooking, what book she's reading. The goal is to build vocabulary for peace." It sounds simple enough to be terrifying. After the call, I sit for a while, watching the light move across the wall. The apartment smells faintly of toast and basil. I open my phone and scroll through messages from Celeste, then to my mother's number. The last text is from her. "We're learning what leaving space looks like." I type, "What's for dinner tonight?" Then I delete it. I try again. "Did the hydrangeas bloom this year?" It feels safer. I send it before I can overthink. For an hour, nothing. I start drafting work emails just to keep my hands busy. Then my phone buzzes. "They did. Blue and white. I think they missed you." I stare at the message until the words blur. It's not profound, but it's something that breathes. At noon, Maeve bursts in like weather. She's holding 2 sandwiches and the newspaper. "You're in print," she announces, dropping the paper onto the table. "Local journalist quoted your statement from the Allergy Awareness Forum. Look," she points to a small column. "Preparation isn't paranoia," says security analyst Blair Harrington, reflecting on her recent medical ordeal. I read it twice. "I sound like a public service announcement." "You sound like a person who lived." We eat by the window. Outside, the world glints, cars, glass, puddles drying into mirrors. Maeve talks about her project at work, something about server security and too many meetings. I listen, grateful for conversation that doesn't require emotional heavy lifting. When she leaves for her afternoon calls, I open my notebook. I write down the sentence Aria gave me. Build vocabulary for peace. Then I add a new list beneath it. Words I want to mean again. 1. Home. 2. Family. 3. Ordinary. 4. Safe. I stare at the list until the words stop looking like strangers. By evening, the sky turns the color of tea left too long to cool. I step onto the small balcony for the first time since I moved here. The air smells of damp metal and smoke from someone's dinner. Down below, Mrs. Duarte is watering her plants, singing softly in Portuguese. The tune drifts upward like something too light to fall. I whisper a reply that no one hears. I'm still here. Inside, my phone buzzes again. This time it's my mother. "Your father says you're back at work soon." "Proud of you, sweetheart, don't rush." It's simple. No explanations, no guilt. For once, that's enough. I text back. "Thank you. One day at a time." She replies with a heart emoji, her first attempt at digital affection. It makes me laugh, and something inside me loosens. When Maeve returns, She finds me at the table with my laptop open, typing. "What are you working on?" she asks. "A new post for the company blog," I say. "About how emergency response isn't only for servers, it's for people too." She grins. "You're turning trauma into tech metaphors again." "It's what I'm paid for," I reply. We eat dinner late, sitting cross-legged on the couch. Milo steals a piece of chicken when we're not looking. The news murmurs in the background, half ignored. Before bed, I write one last thing in the notebook. Healing isn't a return, it's a redesign. Then I close it and slide it under the lamp. The night air moves through the open window, soft and measured. For the first time in a long while, I don't count the seconds between breaths. I just breathe. The cafe smells like cinnamon and rain-damp coats. Celeste waves from the corner table, her hand tentative, as if she's not sure whether I'll wave back. I do. The space between us feels less like a wall now, more like fog you can walk through if you go slow enough. She's early. She always was. When we were children, she used to set the dinner table an hour before anyone else arrived, afraid of being the reason someone waited. I remember that detail now and let it soften something in me. "Hi," she says when I sit down. Her voice sounds steadier than before. "You look better. Therapy helps. So do boundaries," I reply, and we both smile awkwardly. The waiter takes our order 2 teas, 1 lemon tart to share. When he leaves, Celeste pulls a small notebook from her bag. "Dr. Arya said I should start journaling too," she says, almost defensively. "You're seeing her?" "Online." I figured, if she's good enough for you. She shrugs, embarrassed but proud. "I told her I don't know how to talk to you without trying to fix everything." "That's a good start," I say. Celeste looks down at the table. "I keep replaying that night. The sound you made. I didn't even recognize it as you," I thought. "I know," I interrupt gently. "We've both had enough replays." She nods. "I rehomed Nimbus last week." They sent another photo. "He's fat now." "Good. That's what peace does, it makes you soft in the right places." We both laugh, small and real. The lemon tart arrives, and for a few minutes, we talk about nothing serious: her classes, a mutual friend's engagement, the new cafe across town. I listen, surprised at how natural it feels. The rhythm is careful but not forced. When the plates are almost empty, she takes a deep breath. "Mom's been going through old boxes." She found something else. My pulse flickers. "What kind of something?" "A postcard from Street Ives. The year everything happened." I freeze for a second, tea halfway to my mouth. "Let me guess, our family smiling, the beach behind us, everything looking perfect?" "Almost," she says, sliding the postcard across the table. On the front, a girl with wind in her hair holds a yellow bucket, same one from the magnet, but this time the sky looks stormy, darker than I remember. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, "To my brave little fish, keep swimming, even when the water gets rough." She wrote this after the hospital, Celeste says. "She never mailed it. She said she didn't know where to send it, even though you were in the next room." The words hit me sideways. I stare at the ink until it blurs. I remember lying in that hospital bed at 9 years old, clutching a paper cup of water, feeling like a problem that couldn't be solved. "She wanted to comfort you," Celeste says softly, but she thought she'd already lost the right to try. It's not forgiveness, but it's gravity. It pulls everything into perspective. I slide the postcard back across the table. "Keep it," I say. "You found it. Maybe it's meant to stay with you." She nods, though her eyes shine. "Mom's seeing someone too. Not a therapist, an allergist, actually. She said she wants to understand what happens inside a body when it can't breathe. That's one way to start learning," I whisper. The cafe fills with the sound of spoons and quiet laughter. For once, I don't feel like the odd note in the melody. Celeste checks her watch and gathers her things. "Can I call you later? Just to talk, not about the past." "I'd like that." After she leaves, I sit for a while, tracing the ring her teacup left on the table. It looks like a small planet that's lost its orbit. I press my finger against it until it fades. Outside, the sky opens just enough to let light through. I walk home slowly, letting the wind wrap around me. It smells of wet pavement and beginning. When I reach the apartment, Mrs. Duarte is sweeping the hall. "You look lighter," she says. "Did someone take your ghost?" "Something like that," I reply. I make tea, open my notebook, and write a single line. Some ghosts just needed to be heard breathing again. Later that night, I get a message from my mother. "Found your postcard. I hope you kept swimming." I stare at it for a long moment before replying. I did. The water's calmer now. I turn off the phone, breathe in the quiet, and let the moment settle. The postcard may have been lost for years, but the message found its way home. The next day unfolds in slow motion. Morning light drips through the blinds, soft and forgiving. I make tea, sit at the table, and open my laptop for another session with Dr. Aria Lin. She greets me with that patient smile that makes silence feel safe. "You look rested," she says. "I think I'm learning how to sleep without rehearsing danger," I answer. "That's progress. Tell me about the meeting with your sister." I describe the cafe, the postcard, the stormy sky, my mother's words written 2 decades too late. Aria listens without interruption. When I finish, she leans forward slightly. "That postcard is a form of memory correction," she says. "It's your mother trying to rewrite an old story." "Maybe," I reply, "but the story already exists. The damage is archived." "Yes, but archives can have footnotes. You don't erase history, you annotate it." Her metaphor sits with me. Annotation, not deletion. That feels possible. She asks if I've opened the Street Ives file again. I shake my head. It's still in the drawer. "I can't look at that diagnosis yet." Aria's tone softens. "What scares you about it?" "That it'll still have power." "It won't if you read it differently," she says. "You're no longer the patient it describes. You're the witness who survived her own misinterpretation." The words land like a key in a lock. After the call, I open the drawer. The folder waits dusty, quiet, patient. I spread the papers across the table. There it is. The note from Dr. Hanley, the one that called me attention-seeking. Beneath it, a second sheet I hadn't noticed before. A carbon copy, half faded. I lift it closer to the light. The handwriting is different, my mother's. In careful script, requesting second opinion. Concerned initial diagnosis, inaccurate. Child displays physiological distress, not psychological exaggeration. My chest tightens. I never knew she questioned him. At the bottom, a date. 3 days after the incident. I flip the page, searching for more. Attached is a short reply from the clinic. Case closed. No further testing necessary. My mother tried. The system didn't. I sit there for a long time, the papers trembling in my hands. All these years, I thought she stayed silent. But she did speak. They just didn't listen. When Maeve returns from work, I show her the document. She reads it twice, then looks up, eyes wide. "So the twist isn't that she ignored you," she says. "It's that she fought for you and lost." I nod slowly. "She carried the blame for their negligence, and I carried the anger meant for them. That's how trauma hides," Maeve murmurs. "It shapeshifts. That night, I can't sleep. The file lies open on the table like a ghost with new instructions. I text Celeste. "Did Mom ever tell you she asked for a second opinion?" A few minutes later, she replies, "No. She said they refused to see her after that. Dad told her to let it go." I stare at the screen until the words blur. Let it go, 2 words that built an entire generation of silence. I pick up my notebook and write, "Annotation," she tried. The sentence feels like an exhale 20 years late. The next morning, I call my mother. Her voice trembles at first, then steadies. "I wasn't sure you'd want to talk again so soon." "I found the note," I say quietly. "The one you wrote to the clinic." Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "You found that?" "Yes." "I didn't think they kept it," she says, voice breaking slightly. "I thought they burned it or filed it under hysteria like everything else back then." "They didn't. It was at the bottom of the folder." "You tried, Mom." She exhales a long, uneven sound that feels like someone unclenching after years. "I didn't know how to tell you. I thought if you knew I failed, it would hurt more." "It doesn't," I say. "It helps." She starts crying softly, the kind of tears that sound like relief, not regret. I listen without speaking, the way Aria taught me. Sometimes love is just staying on the line. When she finally stops, she whispers, "I didn't know anyone would believe me then, but I hoped someday you might." I do now. We stay like that for a while, two people breathing through static, trying to build a new kind of silence that isn't absence but peace. After we hang up, I step onto the balcony. The sky is pale and open. Somewhere in the distance, a child laughs, clear and fearless. For the first time, the sound doesn't make my chest tighten, it makes me smile. Inside, I take the old file, the postcard, and the letter, and place them together in a new envelope. On the front, I write, "History," annotated. Then I slide it into the drawer beside my notebook. Not buried, not forgotten. Just catalogued truth and misunderstanding sharing the same space, finally balanced. I make tea, leave the window open, and breathe in the cold, honest air. The first article I publish goes live on a Monday. The headline reads, "When Breathing Becomes Bureaucracy, the Invisible Weight of Misdiagnosis." It's not sensational, not even angry, just steady. I write about the system that stamped my body with a label, about the women who learned to doubt their own pain, about how silence becomes an institution when authority calls it professionalism. I don't name names. I don't need to. The story is larger than mine. Maeve proofread it before submission. She said, "You found the tone between fury and forgiveness. That's the hardest balance." The article circulates quietly. No viral spike. No storm. Just small ripples, a few thoughtful comments. One email from a nurse who says she printed it for her students. One from a stranger who writes, "Thank you for describing the thing my doctor never believed." I read them all. Then close my laptop, heart heavy in the right way. That night, I call my father. He answers on the second ring. "Your article made your mother cry," he says. But his tone is different, no accusation, only awe. "Good tears or bad?" "Necessary tears," he replies. She said she felt seen for the first time in years. I don't know what to say, so I tell him about the second opinion letter, how it changed what I believed about her. He sighs. "I told her to drop it back then. I thought I was protecting her from embarrassment. The doctor was family, and I didn't want more conflict. Protection and avoidance look the same from the outside," I say gently. He doesn't argue. "You're right. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Your mother and I, we were raised to survive shame by pretending it wasn't happening. You broke that rule. Someone had to," I answer softly. He chuckles, a warm, unfamiliar sound. "You always were the one who asked for the reason behind the rule." We talk for nearly an hour. He tells me he started volunteering at the Allergy Awareness Foundation, handing out leaflets at local fairs. The image makes me smile, my father. The man who once avoided confrontation, now explaining epinephrine injectors to strangers. "Before we hang up," he says, "we're proud of you, Blair. We didn't know how to be the kind of parents you needed then, but we're trying to learn now." "Trying counts," I say. "It's the only thing that does." After the call, I sit by the window with the lights off, city sounds pulsing faintly below. I think about how truth can feel both heavy and light, like breathing after rain. 2 days later, my editor forwards an invitation from the local university. They want me to give a talk to the journalism students about writing from lived experience. The irony makes me laugh. I spent years writing case studies about corporate risk, and now I'm the case study. Maeve insists on coming. "Someone has to make sure you don't faint under fluorescent lights," she jokes. When I stand at the lectern, the auditorium is half full, but the air is kind. I begin not with the allergy or the article, but with a memory 9 years old, standing on a windy beach, holding a yellow bucket, told to stop exaggerating. I tell them how stories start long before we name them, how survival becomes narrative only when we stop whispering. One student raises her hand. "How do you write about pain without drowning in it?" I pause, considering. "You don't avoid the water," I say. "You learn how to float." They nod, and I see recognition in their faces, the kind that doesn't need specifics to understand. When the talk ends, applause feels too loud, so I bow slightly and laugh. Maeve meets me by the exit. "You did it," she says. And no dramatic collapses. "Disappointing, I know," I tease. We walk out into the afternoon. The air is crisp, and the sky holds that thin kind of light that belongs only to early spring. I breathe it in, steady and full. Later, at home, I open my notebook again. Under History, annotated, I add a new section, Reconstruction. Then, one by one, I list what the last months have rebuilt. 1. My name, detached from diagnosis. 2. My family, speaking in human tones. 3. My breath, unmediated by fear. 4. My story, owned by me. I put down the pen and stare at the list. It's not a happy ending, it's an honest one, and that feels better. Before bed, I receive one last text from my mother. I read your article again. I didn't know how to love a child who scared me, but you taught me that love doesn't have to be fearless. I reply, fearless isn't the goal, Mom. Breathing together is. The phone screen fades to black. The room fills with quiet. I rest my hand on my chest, counting not the beats, but the space between them. The air moves in and out, smooth and alive. I whisper the truth into it, just to hear how it sounds when spoken without trembling. I'm still here. The morning of the visit is clear, the kind of pale spring light that makes even worn bricks look gentle. My mother texted last night. Lunch at 1? Nothing fancy. 3 words I never thought would sound like courage. Maeve insists on driving me. In case this turns into emotional demolition, she says. I pretend to protest but let her come anyway. The closer we get to the old house, the more the air changes thicker, sweeter, full of memory. When we pull up, the hydrangeas are indeed blue and white, just as she'd said. The porch looks smaller, the paint a little chipped. The world has aged, but the house still breathes the same quiet confidence of a place that believes it has seen everything. Mother meets me at the door before I knock. Her hands twist in her apron, an echo of all the years she twisted silence into composure. You look wonderful, she says, voice trembling. You too. We stand for a moment in the doorway, not knowing what to do with our hands. Then she steps aside, and I walk in. The air smells faintly of lemon polish and something baking apple, maybe cinnamon. The same scent from childhood, but softer now, less insistent. The kitchen has changed. The table's been replaced, the chairs are new, but the magnet on the refrigerator remains Street Ives, 2004. It stares at me like an artifact. My mother notices my glance. I keep it there as a reminder, she says. Not of the mistake, but of what survived it. We sit at the table. 2 cups of tea steam between us. She clears her throat. I read your piece again. I thought about all the times I said you were too sensitive. You were scared, I say quietly. Yes, she whispers. I thought if I denied the danger, it would go away. When you almost stopped breathing, it felt like a punishment for every silence I ever chose. It wasn't, I say. It was just life being cruel in its own way. Her eyes fill. I wanted to protect you. I didn't know how. I know now, I tell her. I found your note to the clinic. She presses her lips together, nodding slowly. I thought they destroyed it. I fought for you, and when they dismissed me, I started doubting my own eyes. That's the day I learned how disbelief spreads. For the first time, her voice doesn't sound defensive. It sounds human, small, and true. We talk for hours, not perfectly, not without tears, but with honesty that feels earned. She admits to seeing a therapist of her own. I tell her about Dr. Arya and my new students. We trade truths like people learning a forgotten language. When the afternoon light slides across the kitchen floor, she asks if I'd like to see something. From the drawer beside the stove, she pulls out an envelope. Inside is a single photo me on the beach, holding the yellow bucket, hair blown across my face. The same photo from the magnet, but unfiltered by memory. You looked so alive that day, she says. I've kept this picture hidden for years because it made me feel guilty. But now, I think it's time you had it. I take the photo. The paper feels warm from her hands. I study the child. I was wind-tangled, smiling, unaware of the storm coming. I think she'd forgive us both, I whisper. She nods, tears glinting but unfallen. Maybe she already has. We hug awkward, hesitant, but real. Not the kind that promises everything is fixed, just the kind that says, we're still here to try. Before I leave, I place the magnet back on the fridge in its usual place. Keep it, I tell her. It belongs here. I'll take the real photo instead. Maeve waits in the car, music low, engine running. How was it? She asks when I get in. Not perfect, I say, smiling faintly. But breathing. She grins. I'll take that diagnosis any day. As we drive away, I watch the house shrink in the rearview mirror. It doesn't disappear this time. It just grows smaller until it fits neatly behind us, exactly where the past belongs, visible but no longer suffocating. That night, back in my apartment, I frame the photograph and set it on my desk beside the notebook. Under the section titled Reconstruction, I add one final line. Forgiveness is not the ending. It's the architecture that lets light back in. The city outside hums, alive and ordinary. I close my eyes, breathe once, twice, and realize that the story I've been telling all along isn't about illness or even survival. It's about learning to live without holding my breath. And finally, I do. The email arrives on a Wednesday afternoon, unmarked and ordinary, sandwiched between a newsletter and an ad for office chairs. The subject line reads, "Follow-up regarding your 2004 medical case." At first, I think it's spam. Then I see the sender's domain, stevesclinic.org.uk. My chest tightens. It's been 21 years since that name last dictated the terms of my body. I click. Dear Miss Harrington, we are conducting an internal review of historical records following staff retirements and legal compliance audits. During this process, we discovered documentation pertaining to your 2004 case under Dr. Hanley. The review revealed irregularities in diagnostic reporting and ethical conduct that may have impacted patient outcomes. Please contact our administrative office if you wish to discuss this matter further or obtain official documentation. We deeply regret any distress this may cause. Sincerely, Dr. Miriam Lewis, Director of Patient Affairs. The words blur for a moment. My first reaction isn't rage. It's disbelief, the quiet, stunned kind that comes after waiting so long you stop expecting answers. Maeve walks in just as I'm rereading the message. "You look like someone handed you a bomb made of paper," she says. "They reopened the case," I whisper. She leans over my shoulder, reads quickly. "Irregularities, that's their polite word for lying. Or for covering their tracks," I say. It's 20 years late, but maybe it's something. I send a short reply before I can talk myself out of it. "Yes, I'd like to review the documents. Please send all related materials." Then I close the laptop and sit perfectly still. The air feels heavy again, but not suffocating, more like gravity, reminding me I'm still here. That night, I dream of the beach again. Only this time, I'm not the child gasping for air. I'm the adult, standing at a distance, watching her run with the bucket. When she stumbles, I reach her before she hits the sand. I hand her the injector. She laughs and says, "You made it back in time." I wake up with tears drying on my face. 2 days later, the file arrives digitized, indexed, and enclosed with a short note from Dr. Lewis. "We've also included correspondence between Dr. Hanley and your parents, along with internal memos. We believe you have the right to see them." I open the first PDF. There are the old forms, the handwriting I remember too well. But at the bottom of one page, something new, an unsigned memo dated the 12th of July, 2004. Dr. Hanley has expressed concern that the mother may pursue additional consultations. He suggested modifying the case summary to minimize liability. "The child's episode likely stress-induced," he wrote, though documenting as psychosomatic would prevent further scrutiny. My stomach twists. The word modify flashes like a red light. He changed the record. He rewrote the truth to protect himself. I scroll through more pages. One contains my mother's second letter, the one I'd never seen, begging the clinic to test environmental allergens again. At the bottom, stamped in cold ink, "Denied. Case closed." Maeve stands behind me, silent. When I reach the final page, I realize what the true twist is. It isn't that he lied. It's that the truth survived despite him. Because my mother didn't destroy her copy. She kept it, buried under years of guilt and self-blame, waiting for the world to remember its conscience. For a long time I just sit there, staring at the screen, the cursor blinking in the corner like a metronome for something I can finally call justice. Maeve breaks the silence. "Are you going to publish this?" I shake my head. "Not yet. This isn't just a story. It's evidence. It deserves precision, not revenge." She nods slowly. "You've changed." Maybe, I say. Or maybe I've just stopped editing my own survival. That evening, I call my mother. She answers on the first ring. They reopened the case, I say. A sharp breath on the other end. What? They admitted he falsified parts of the report. They're offering to meet. I wanted you to know first. She doesn't speak for several seconds. Then, in a voice smaller than I've ever heard, she says, I told your father once that truth never rots. It just waits for the right season. Her words break something open in me. It's harvest time then. She laughs through tears. You sound like me. Maybe we were always the same, just standing on opposite shores. We make plans to go to Street Ives together. Not for confrontation, but for closure. Before I sleep, I open my notebook and add one final entry under reconstruction. Truth doesn't come back to punish. It comes back to finish the story. The train to Street Ives cuts through a green so deep it almost feels blue. My mother sits beside me, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the window as the coastline begins to appear. The sea glints in the distance, silver, indifferent, endless. Neither of us speaks for a while. The rhythm of the train fills the silence, steady and forgiving. When she finally breaks it, her voice is quiet. I used to dream about coming back here, she says, but every time I tried to imagine it, the air felt too thin. And now? Now I think I can breathe again. We arrive just past noon. The wind carries salt and the faint sweetness of seaweed. The town hasn't changed much. Narrow streets, pastel houses, seagulls claiming rooftops like kings. Everything smells like nostalgia and something older like truth waiting too long. The clinic sits on a hill above the harbor, whitewashed and modest. A brass plaque reads Street Ives Medical Center. Inside, the air smells of disinfectant and dust. The receptionist, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes, greets us. You must be Miss Harrington. Dr. Lewis is expecting you. Doctor. Miriam Lewis turns out to be younger than I imagined, maybe 40, precise in speech but gentle in presence. She thanks us for coming, offers tea we don't drink, and slides a folder across the desk. These are the full findings. We've also reached out to several other families affected by Dr. Hanley's altered reports. There will be a formal statement. My mother flinches at his name. I place my hand over hers. Dr. Lewis continues. He's no longer practicing, retired years ago. We're establishing a fund for those whose treatment was delayed or denied. It won't undo anything but its acknowledgement. For a long moment, none of us speaks. Then my mother says, He called my daughter dramatic. Dr. Lewis nods. He did that to several patients, especially women and children. It was easier than admitting he didn't know. The words settle heavily in the room, but there's a strange comfort in their precision. The truth, finally spelled correctly. When we leave the clinic, the sun has begun to break through the clouds. My mother and I walk toward the beach, the one from the postcard. The sand is damp, darker than memory. Waves shush against the shore like a language older than guilt. We stop near the water's edge. She pulls the magnet from her bag, the one she'd carried all this way. I thought maybe we should leave it here, she says. It belonged to a story that's finished. She kneels and sets it in the sand. The enamel catches the sunlight one last time before the tide begins to reach for it. We stand together, watching the water claim it, the sea folding the past into itself without ceremony. For a long while we just breathe nothing profound, just shared air. Then she says, I used to think forgiveness was an act. But maybe it's just a posture. A way of standing still and letting the tide come without running. I nod. Then we're standing right. We walk back slowly, shoes heavy with sand but hearts strangely light. The path curves up toward the town, and as we climb, I glance back. The sea looks endless, but the horizon feels close enough to reach. That evening, on the train home, I open my notebook one last time. The pages are full, notes, fragments, old pain rewritten into something steadier. On the final page I write, Truth came back to me like the tide not to drown me, but to show me how to float. My mother dozes beside me, head resting against the window. The setting sun paints everything gold. When the train slows near London, Maeve texts, How's the air? I reply, Clear. Finally clear. And for once, it feels true. Months later, the Street Ives Clinic issues its public apology. The report mentions systemic gender bias, diagnostic negligence, and long-term harm to multiple patients. My name isn't in the article, but I know where it belongs in the margin. The magnet never washes ashore again. Maybe it's at the bottom of the sea, maybe it's gone. Either way, I like to think it found peace where it sank. At home, the photograph from that same day still stands on my desk. A girl with wind-tangled hair, smiling at something just out of frame. Sometimes, when the light hits it right, I swear she looks older, like she knows the ending already. I whisper to her, "We did it." And then I breathe slow, ordinary, infinite.